Remember, a Target 7 investigation from last month shared community concerns over the Bedford Humane Society's donations and future construction plans. The Humane Society said it's working to be transparent over the plan for a new adoption center. Target 7 investigator Isabella Ladon is live in the studio. So Isabella, I understand the worry about this future continues to grow.
Yeah, Kate, the group known as Citizens for a Transparent Bedford Humane Society say they are still wanting answers about the nonprofit's financial donation records. Now, this comes after the Humane Society held 2 public meetings to share an update about the proposed adoption center. People have donated hundreds of thousands of dollars for the building that's been in the works for years, but the group says they're concerned about the delay.
We're looking for transparency. We're looking for questions about why they haven't broke ground yet.
Shanna Sayers is a former volunteer of the Humane Society and the co-founder of a group that's calling for answers. 2 months ago, the group raised concerns about where donations for the adoption center were going. The Humane Society responded, saying $1.2 million was in a separate account only to be used for the building. Now, the group says their requests for financial records have gone unanswered.
They had told us in the breaking news that all their financials would be public. We were trying to look at some board meeting minutes, and they are now telling us that they've met with a lawyer and that all those documents are private and that we cannot see them. So we're a little concerned about that.
The Humane Society tells me they met with a contracting company and are in the final stage before construction. President Mark Nevin said the county and the Regional Water Authority have approved the building plans, but he declined to comment further on the continuing calls for transparency. There is also a petition circulating demanding the Humane Society provide detailed public records about how financial donations are being used. It's received more than 200 signatures so far. Kate, the Humane Society hopes to break ground on the adoption center by Labor Day. Now, my previous story on this can be found over on our website.
Absolutely. Calls for transparency tonight. Isabella Ladon following it all for us. Thank you.